Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shayna Watson. I'm on the Pico marketing team, and I'm here with our head of product, Steve Wishau. We are going to be putting on a webinar for you today, the best of 2024 and New Year feature sneak peek. So Steve's going to run through some of our exciting updates that we've had this year and give you a little overview of what we have coming next year. So I will go ahead and hand it over to Steve in just a minute. Before I do that, we will have plenty of time for questions. There will be time at the end. And if you have any questions before the end, just go ahead and pop them into the Q&A down here at the bottom of the screen, and we'll be sure to get to all your questions. Also, this webinar will be recorded and you can watch it on demand anytime after today. So thanks for joining us, and I will go ahead and hand it over to Steve.
Thanks, Shane. I appreciate it. Again, I'm Steve Wishau. I lead the product team at Pico. I've been around Pico for about 3.5 years now. Prior to joining Pico, I was operations manager running a few different facilities. I was actually a Pico customer before I came on board, ranging from aerospace to industrial backup, power solutions, and a little bit of 3D printing in clinical diagnostic laboratory in between. The reason that I was so drawn to Pico is that it's a very strong product in the way of getting started very quickly, and also being a resource light application to run a factory. For those that are short on time, as most manufacturers and operations folks are, this is a great way to manage your facility in a quick and effective way. And a lot of the features that we've kind of run through in the last calendar year and early next year support that mission. So kind of a quick summary of what you're going to see today, plus a sneak peek of what's coming through next year. Kind of focuses in one of kind of 3 tiers and areas. The first of which is covering digital work instructions, primarily how we capture and manage high mix environments. So we want to capture those process variants and product variants to manage the the high-low volume assemblies that it ranges from those smaller sub-assemblies and little, smaller components that are maybe benchtop assemblies or components that go into your larger product. But we also want to support that high-level product line of your customers are ordering things with different options and configurations. How do you manage all of that complexity, up to 64,000 potential part numbers? How do we mix and manage all those variant options together? The second of which is kind of leaning into more of that supervisory control of operator guidance, and how do we notify those technicians of when things change. So one of our newest updates is related to new process notifications of updating things directly to operators, and making sure that with the skills matrix, we have supervisory control over that operator training and authenticating things appropriately. Kind of finally, the last area of focus that we've had as part of our production is related to our visual factory and machine operations dashboard, so we can represent the the real-time factory floor with how things are going, and track different machines that are integrated around and within your assembly cells to make sure that we have that full traceability line across really the entire factory, and not just at specific automation cells or specific assembly locations. So the first thing I'll kind of dive into is the process variants. Again, we want to manage that high mix product with linked templates and variants. And the way that we manage that is creating essentially one template for each set of options. In this example here, we're looking at a clutch install that we have a sequence of that we're scanning a relevant chassis ID. We're linking that ID to a couple different torque targets, and then we're fastening some bolts with a variety of different actions. And the way that we can manage this is because we're doing a single clutch install at a given station, but there might be 5, 10, 20, 30 different varieties of brands, options, or things that are going on the vehicle in this example. So one, we want to select and manage specific actions, specific content for each of these variants. When things don't change, or you want to change them across each of those options, you only have to manage that template, and it'll drive those changes down across that entire product line. So I've got a quick little sample here about how some of our customers are utilizing variants in their facility.
Hi, my name is Greg Witt. I am a process improvement engineer. I work for Moride International.
Hi, I'm Chris Stewart. I'm the manufacturing engineer here at Pollington Machine Tool. And this is how I use Pico and the templates and the variants.
The variants feature is something that we utilize to control a lot of similar part numbers that all need an individual process.
Our main use with templates and variants is for differentiating between right-hand, left-hand parts. We use it for translation to have one set of work instructions in English, another set of work instructions in Spanish. And we also use it for shipping labels with having a primary template built, and then each variant is a different part number.
Hi, my name is Greg Witt.
Double Greg. So, we went through what Greg and Chris review with some of their process variants, but how can we kind of take that to the next level by managing product variants at the higher level? So in this illustration here, we have an example of a bicycle, but instead of each one of these tiles, in Pico world, we call them processes. Each one of these are essentially a variant process that's managed individually, that whether we're installing handlebars or attaching wheels, for example, there might be 5, 10 different options for each of those processes. But we needed to manage that because of each of these, 6 different operations before it gets to that final quality check. If all of those have 5 or 6 different options, how are we going to manage the 5 or 6 factorial level of work instructions as we manage that across? So one, we want to make sure that we can create a solid template of a workflow here. What I mean by that is we want to set the sequence that we're always doing a frame, we're always doing these handlebar installs and wheel attachments at same times. It doesn't always have to be the case, but traditionally speaking, we want to make sure that the sequence is correct. And then from there, we essentially select what bike are we building. Is this a mountain bike with a red or blue seat? Is it a mountain bike with wide or extra wide tires? How can we select the right process to be able to manage it? So we'll take those part numbers and bill of materials for each of these processes, either statically from an ERP, and have those for reference for the operator. And then when you pull in that manufacturing order, that work order along the way, we have the ability to kind of transact and make sure that we're ordering the right variant or selecting the right process variant along the way. So we have it on both the individual process level, and we want to scale that up to the top level product as well. And Shayna, is there a question that came in?
Yeah, we had a question on that. Can a copy be made of an entire template or variant structure? For example, if setting up workflows for a new model year of a product?
Absolutely. So each of those templates or each of those variants that are created for the process, we have the ability to essentially, you can select whichever one of those you want as this is my option. I want to start this off as my next work instruction iteration. You can either leave them tied together, all tied to that same template, or you can select that template or one of your variants and say, this is my new base model year. This is my base edition, capturing all that information that I've already learned so far. And this is my new line in the sand, so to speak, and how I want to manage going forward.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I think we had another question that's kind of related to that. Can Pico communicate with my other systems in order to, can Pico communicate with my other systems to order and manage product variants?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And the answer is absolutely. It's actually a recommended approach by us because we have, I mentioned, there's potentially 64,000 different product options and configurations that get selected. That's quite a big set to order from. And of course, you're never going to usually order 64,000, but you might have higher runners. And when you're managing that in your inventory system and your ERP for other work order management, other business systems and practices, we want to make sure that when we receive that work order or job order from those other systems, we can select each process or variant or option effectively. So we can absolutely communicate with all those other systems and receive that order appropriately.
Perfect. Great. Okay. And we have one more related to variants, it looks like. How do I have my operators select the right variant?
Great question. And that actually ties back to the previous answer a little bit as well, because each of those job or option configurations has a, it could be tied to the work order, it could be tied to the job ID. But if I'm at a station and I can build up to 15, 20 different options, how do I know what work order I'm working against? And how do I know which is the right process or option, which bolt, which part, which bill of materials option? So we have features like we call it scan to start, or we can receive information from other databases or systems that when you enter in that work order or that job and says, this is the thing I'm working on right here, will automatically populate the right corresponding process variant to the work instruction screen. And of course, link back to that top level work order or serial number or whatever is the main syncing SYNC variable across all of your processes.
Okay, thank you. I think that's the questions for right now at this section, so I'll let you get back to the presentation.
Great, sounds good. So the next section, as I've got here, is related to the kind of operator guidance and a little bit of the quality control. And I've got some example work instructions here so you can see what that might look like. But essentially, we want to inform operators when process changes. And this kind of avoids that colloquial pencil whipping strategy of, yes, I've been around for 20, 25 years, or it's a relatively simple and straightforward process. And I've kind of gone into muscle memory mode that I don't necessarily need the work instructions, which is great. We want to make sure that we're enabling those experienced operators just as much as we have those inexperienced operators as well. But when things do change, I imagine a lot of you have seen I've got Post-it notes that I'm going to stick to the factory floor that says, hey, by the way, this is a new version. We've swapped out this partner for this number, or we've got an approved deviation, or we're temporarily using this because we ran out of this screw, or we're stacking up these washers instead. How do we communicate to those operators when things actually change? And whether it's a big change and you bring them all into a conference room, or you do a training out on the production floor and everybody signs the sheet of paper that says, I've read and understood the training given to me. For those either potentially minor or major changes, we can communicate to those operators appropriately. So anytime that you push an update to the work instructions, you have the ability to say, these are the steps that change, whether it's step 5, 6, 9, and highlight the relevant areas on the instruction. So we can say, hey, the description changed, the bill of materials changed, we've added a quality alert, we changed the picture. We can segment and make sure that these operators are at least notified within their work instruction screen here anytime they start a new work order or a serial number of that process. These instructions are prompted for them. So you can, one, keep all of your work instructions paper free of those updates that, are supposed to only be there for a week, but end up staying there for weeks, months, quarters, and make sure that we're notifying our operators appropriately. To kind of complement that, we also have the industry standard skills matrix as well that ranges from levels 1 through 4 to document each operator for each process along the way. And this can be as granular as every single station, every single process. You've got all of those options here. You can control operators being able to build all, none, or whatever makes the most sense for your facility in between. And that's ranging for operators from level 1 to 4, level 1 being I can only observe with someone with me. I can't do anything, but this is my C1 version of the training. Level 2 is I can perform a build with a trainee signed in with me, kind of that team build activity if someone's watching me building here, but I can do that as needed. And then level 3 is your standard operator. I can go ahead and do all those things appropriately. And of course, level 4 is I can sign in with other folks and train them on how to do things. This is a great way to not only restrict operators from building if they don't have the proper training, or you want to restrict certain processes to only credentialed users, but this is also a great way to see that you have a flexible workforce of who's actually trained in this process that I can go shift around and I can send them to this station and they can pick right up where they left off and have this content available for me as well. So it's a great way to document all of those things happening across the facility. Supporting some of the, the supervisor and work instruction creation side, we've increased the functionality of managing our in-product media library, which means we can manage and search now for all those uploaded pictures, videos, PDFs, and more importantly, where those things are used within the product. So when we have these images and files that are uploaded, we know which user uploaded them in the first place, what processes within Pico they were used in. If there's a specific file format, I can see if I'm replacing an image or replacing a picture. I've uploaded a document. Now we've changed the color, form, fit, function, whatever it may be. Now we can go in and say what these processes are. So we can either have historical versions available if we'd like, but also switch all of those relevant places over. And I'm not quadruple checking to make sure I got all the images. The library will tell me where all of that potentially legacy content is hidden within the work instructions for me, and I can document it. And that's ranging from your main image all the way down to the linked content or the annotations available on each one of those work instruction steps. So now I'll transition over to the kind of the data analysis side and look at some of the tools that we have for production monitoring that we launched this year. The first is what we call a visual factory, that it's the interactive production floor for tracking status and build information in the facility. The key piece of this is that we've arranged it in a blueprint layout view to match the physical layout of the production floor. So you can drag these station tiles in and then interact with them to see, for example, station B that's highlighted here. You can see that this build was started at 10:53 a.m. It's on step 1 of 3. We can see who that operator is. I can always click a link and observe that station to see how they're building. And this might be relevant because they've triggered an operator alert here that they're actually out of material. And that was triggered by that operator maybe 20 minutes or so after they started the build. And because we have an alerting system and a communication through Microsoft Teams or Slack, we can see what that chat transcript looks like as well. So at any point, I can pull up this digital representation of my factory, look at my production line grouping and see what am I building right now, who's in trouble, because it looks like I've got station E that's down and station F is now off because my work in progress is potentially starving them of work to be able to do. So I might need to go see, yes, station B has an active alert, but station E is actively down and there's no communication from it. So as a manager, as a supervisor, I can see an interactive screen like this and go and check on it if I haven't received any notifications yet. And of course, we can track those active or potential bottlenecks as well to support that type of flow. So to complement that, we also have the factory floor dashboard, which is a way for us to display that live data out on the production floor. So this is the less interactive view, but it'll keep track of all of those items that are coming up across the production line. So we can see those current cycle times on every station along the way, those serial number locations out on the production floor, and we can see what stations are up, what stations are down, and how long have they been in this active state. So we can see station G, for example, has been out of material for almost just over a minute here. Station F decided to take their break because station G is out of material and they didn't want to just continually put material there. So their supervisor sent them on a break there potentially. And then we can just see if all of these stations are moving in a production line or a conveyor or all of these stations move product at the same time. We can see who's in cycle time, who's out of cycle time, and kind of track to see which stations are a little bit ahead or behind and who needs those resources to catch up along the way. So it's just another visual indicator of I know my cycle times, I know this station is behind, where do I need to go first? I can clearly see some stations are down and I haven't heard about it yet. Maybe I should go check on it to see if they need any help. or send a supervisor manufacturing engineer over to go help as well. So this is just another visual tool between meetings when you're running around the facility, that if these are dashboards either displayed on the production floor, in a conference room, wherever it may be, you have the ability to see the active output, how much inventory is waiting for that station potentially. It's just that live look in at that station. To complement those assembly stations, as I mentioned before, for those machines that are, have traceable information coming out that you want to make sure are captured, whether it's batch and lot recording for traceability, or crucial parts that are going into sub-assemblies, or there's some quality checks that you need to do to make sure your first pass yield and SPC is where you'd like it to be. We have the ability to tap into machines ranging from CNC machines, digital IO equipment, to track through and count output and monitor that pace against what target could be. And what I mean by that is, according to when your shifts are and what your scheduling is, we know what your target cycle time is. We know however many pieces you run over a certain amount of time, and you can say that your average is slightly behind pace. And over the rest of your shift, you have X amount of time left, that you've done 55 so far. According to your average cycle time, you're actually a little bit behind schedule, that you might miss your target for the shift by 5 pieces. What's that cycle time that you need to hit to catch up? And if the machine's capable of reporting downtime information, we can capture that information as well. So all these recent downtime events here could be coming directly from a CNC machine that says there's, whether that's specific type of programming, or signals coming in from the operator directly from the machine, we can capture all those downtime events for the operator as well. So when a supervisor goes and asks for the end of shift report or how the previous day went, all these downtimes are captured with the recent cycles. So we can see both output and all those downtime events, so we can potentially start improving some machine performance, or critical spares, or tool life, or those things that might affect the overall status of the line that's running. Yes, Shana.
We had one quick question come in on that. Can I give my operators the ability to skip or bypass steps in the digital work instructions based on their skill level noted in the skills matrix?
Yeah, great question. So I'm going to hop back here for just a second. So these skills matrix can be tied to directly to those levels, or directly to the user levels. Typically, that level 4 trainer is going to be a production lead or a supervisor. It doesn't always have to be, but we've implemented some specific credentialing within the system to be able to do exactly what you're saying. So there's 2 different methods of managing that within Pico. They're both called skip and bypass. Skip means I can skip this section of the work instructions, that maybe something isn't working correctly, or something's out of tolerance, maybe there's a broken piece, but I can continue building while I'm waiting for help. We call that a skip. That credentialed users can do that. Separately credentialed is what's called a bypass, that says I don't need to come back to this before I can continue moving this down the production line. It's a higher credentialed level of saying something isn't going as expected, but I can do that appropriately. And those can be managed separately from the skills matrix as well, to capture that information that's relevant. So just to kind of recap that, essentially we have the ability to say, skip this for now, but come back to it, or skip this and it's okay, I've documented what's gone differently with it over the course of the build. So we can manage those in different ways with those user credentials.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So as we kind of wrap up here, I'm going to talk through some of the new device integrations that we have, that we've kind of seen over the last few months and in this year, to capture that true error proofing ability that we've seen integrated with our platform. A couple that fall into that in-process quality inspection perspective is using cameras to detect errors in real time. We've got some great partners in Overview AI and integrations with Detective that can capture, analyze camera images in real time very quickly. Do I have all of my components where they need to be? Do I have all of my plugs, torque marks, whatever it may be, we can detect and identify those things as either present or not present to be a true visual checklist that's coming directly from equipment instead of relying on an operator for those visual inspections at a significantly reduced price point than you would expect historically. We can also integrate with specific high pot testers, air leak testers, specifically the Seward Sentinel tester for some dielectric strength tests, but we've integrated some new air leak testers as well. There's a variety of different brands that we've integrated this year for enabling traceability as well, for scanning barcodes and printing those out on different labels. Of course, in addition to the flagship Zebra models, we have either Dymo Keyence laser markers, Dymo printers, and these different barcodes as well. So I think we're pretty much nearing our completion of every industrial brand that you might expect to see in our device library for intaking scanners and printers, but that door is always open to be able to do so. And then those final operator efficiency items are collecting information from newer updated badge readers or engaging foot pedals or switches to initiate those actions or advance to those next steps in the work instructions without having to go to the next step as well. And then some new tablets that are outside of the normal Samsung Android realm and using something like the Zebra ET4X tablet as well. For more precision fastening, we have the blue chip industry standard torque tools that are constantly having new updates in their controllers and software. So we always have the latest there. And we have some distance measurement tools as well that are typically for your calipers of the world, but also things like LiDAR sensors that not only measure distance from either across the room or across the workbench, but can detect movement, which can be a very, very low cost proximity or proximity sensor to determine when things are moving across the workbench with either cycle counts or parts moving in and out of the workbench. And finally, we've got some new machines that manage things via Modbus PLC connections to prompt some of those actions to complement our existing PLC and OPC integrations as well. A quick sneak peek at some features coming up. We've got some kind of automated flows to import instructions or export product PDFs and connecting to new ERP integrations as well as those move and change with their relevant system updates. So if you're interested in learning more about Pico, you can always check out our training center that we have on our website, or you can sign up for a free license of digital work instructions with Pico. It's free forever for you, so you can always have the base version of Pico to manage and explore our product.
Great, thank you, Steve. We did have one more question just come in here. Approximately how long does it take for an operator to select the reason why they had downtime? Do they have to log in to downtime and then back to the job?
That's a great question. I'm actually going to go back to one of my previous screens just so you can see the example of it. What's going to be the best example here? So this is an image of our work instructions. In the background, you can see a little pause button here. Essentially on that main work instructions and that worker guidance screen, you can either pull it up from the left-hand flyout menu, which is these 3 bars on the left, or this pause button that you can see in the background. When you hit that or hit that 3-bar menu on the left, you have the ability to say, hey, I need to log something, and say that I have a note. I need to trigger an alert to say I need help at my station right now. And I need the third option is logging that downtime, as you said. So all of those operator raising their hand or documenting something happening is done with one tap on the screens, and they're prompted with the menus that you predetermine, essentially saying, these are all my quality scrap codes, these are all my expected downtime events, and these are these are the pre-listed alerts that I need to send out to Teams or Slack. So within one press of a button to enter a downtime or logging mode and another press to enter what they're logging, we can document that information very quickly.
Great, thank you. One last question, and then I think we'll wrap it up. Steve, what is your favorite new feature from 2024?
I'm really excited about managing the product variants. I know that the process variance was a really big deal for us earlier this year, but when we start getting into the really complex environments, I keep mentioning that, $64,000 part number spectrum, it's really challenging to manage all of those work instructions and content. But the way that we have managed our leveraged our process variants, now we can order those at the holistic product level and select those and map them together with those other business systems as part of that tech stack, which has been pretty exciting.
Great. All right. Thank you. All right, I think that wraps us up for today. I want to thank everyone for joining us. There will be a really quick short survey right after I end the call here. Takes less than 30 seconds. We'd appreciate it if you fill that out. Again, this will be recorded and available on demand on our website. And we thank you for taking the time to join us for the webinar today. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Steve.